Okay, today I'm in London with Dave Yates of the Daily Mirror. Thanks very much for agreeing to talk
You're
to
very
us,
welcome,
Dave.
Simon. Very welcome.
No, I'll go into this first of all. Something that disturbed me a while back that you tweeted, and you're quite a good tweeter. You wrote, "Superb stuff on the whip from Johnson Racing today. Informed and passionate, such a welcome contrast from the sperm lottery winner who talks out of his ass."
Yes, I remember that tweet very well. Remember Mark Johnston's contribution, which was especially welcome. I know that upset you, and I think it upset a few other people on Twitter, which we can talk about Twitter in a moment, but it was... I know a lot of people thought that I meant Charlie Fellows by that, because he was talking about that he would have happily have accepted disqualification of Praise B. Is it Praise B? Yeah, at Royal Ascot's. Because Hayley Turner had given the horse too many smacks. It was actually aimed at another Charlie Brooks, who had come up with a load of nonsense about the whip. I think they were both talking nonsense, and I very much question, if not doubt, I very much question whether connections of the winning horse would have been quite so magnanimous if the stewards had said, "Sorry, that's one extra hit." I know it was more than one extra hit, but let's say one extra hit. We're slinging the horse out. I mean, with regard to the phrase sperm lottery winners, I use that quite a lot, and I suppose Steve Jones always tells me I've got a terrible chip on my shoulder, and that I'm not necessarily trying to make myself out to be a working class hero, which I'm not. I come from a sort of lower middle class background, and I'm not trying to pretend to be from the wrong side of the tracks. When I'm not, I've had lots of fantastic opportunities, but horse racing is a place where there are lots of sperm lottery winners and lots of people who maybe get jobs that they wouldn't do if they competed in sort of real life. But then again, I suppose that also applies to the situation politically at the moment, doesn't it? How many prime ministers have been to Eton? Is it about 19 or something?
That's what I was going to ask. I mean, didn't you think that was a dangerous statement to make, given the amount of people that are wealthy through no fault of their own in the horse racing game?
Yeah, possibly. But I mean, I'm not on Twitter to curry favour, right? And I'm not in journalism to curry favour. I love what I do. I love horse racing. I like most of the people that I've encountered through it. But, it's something that grates with me above anything else in the sport that I do, and that is chumminess between the media and the practitioners, right? When you have that people, like a couple of weeks ago at the Breeders' Cup, Brittany Urton, the reporter, the American reporter, her father won a Breeders' Cup race, and I'm sorry, I don't know his name, but apart from the start and the beginning of that interview, and I think she said something like, "I'm so proud to be interviewing you," or "I'm so happy," and then at the end she said, "I'm so proud of this victory." Everything in between, you would not have known that she was the trainer's daughter. It was a brilliantly, professionally conducted interview. I don't know Brittany Urton. I've met her once. We were introduced at Royal Ascot by Nick Luck, and it was literally like, "Hello, how are you?" That's that. But I thought that's something that grates with me, and we know the people that we're talking about. There was a piece on Sky Sports Racing a few weeks ago, and I'm not having a go at Sky Sports Racing. I think they do just as good a job as Racing TV, and I think the two channels complement each other very well. But the reporter was talking with Frankie Dettori and said, it's I hope I'm not giving away trade secrets by saying we exchange private texts. And I think, is there any need for that? And so if you do ruffle a few feathers by saying sperm lottery winners, like the posh people that I know and that they know I respect them, they know that I'm not aiming that at them. I probably should have put Charlie Brooks in by his Twitter handle, but as I say, I think they were both talking nonsense, and that's something that I admire about people. I don't want to single people out in talking about friends or media colleagues or anything, but I will say about Lydia Hislop is that throughout her career, I've never seen Lydia try to cozy up to any single practitioner, and that is the way that people should behave in the media. They shouldn't use this. Trainers and jockeys aren't our mates. One thing that there'll be journalists, both print and TV, who sort of apologise for asking a question and say, like, effectively, I know I'm down here and you're up there, but would you take a few seconds to tell me how wonderful you are? Well, hold on a minute. I've never trained a Derby winner and I've never ridden a Derby winner, but I've written thousands of articles. I got a job through because the people that employed me thought I had the ability to do that job. I've never been sued. I've never had to issue an apology, and so whatever certain people might think of me, I consider myself to be an experienced professional who's on the same level as most trainers or jockeys. It just happens that I do a different thing, and if that sounds arrogant, then I'm sorry, but I'd rather be like that than someone who's just trying to curry favour, because there are far too many members of the media that do that. And I'm sorry for ranting about this, but one thing, like the number of times you write or say something and a press room colleague spins it on to the practitioner and say, oh, I hear Dave Yates was slagging you off, and you get a call from them. That's just pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. And I think that the racing media in other countries, someone told me about a row between I think a trainer had disrespected quite a young reporter in Australia, and that the rest of the press room had said, we don't appreciate you talking to our lot like that. And I think that's a good way of doing it. It's not to say that I don't respect everyone I work with and I don't like some of them, but as a trade, I think we're far too, certain members of it are far too, they're far too willing to try and curry favour by shit stirring, essentially.
Okay, now you've been with the Daily Mirror for how many years?
I've been with the Daily Mirror since May 2002, so it's 17 and a half years.
So how did you get there? What's your background originally?
Right.
I'm guessing you didn't go to Eton.
I didn't go to Eton. I went to Pilgrim Upper School in Bedford, which was a very good comprehensive, and sadly it closed about 2 years after I left because I think the Labour councillors thought it had ideas above its station. I think the Tory councillors wanted the kids there to go to the Harper Trust schools. I think, as I recall, the only my mother still lives in Bedford and I still go back there. And I think the Lib Dems, or the Liberals at the time, were the only people who actually tried to keep the school going. I went there. I got a place at Oxford where I read law, not very well. I got a 2-2 between 1987 and 1990 at Trinity College, which is a lovely college in the middle of the city. And then I think I got into racing at school because I was quite easily bored, and I started going down the bookies and betting. I thought it was quite an interesting, a lot of adolescent, teenage males are drawn to different types of vice, aren't they? Essentially, the places that you're told not to go to. When we went on holiday with my mother, she told us not to go to amusement arcades, and so of course, when I was off the leash, I would go to amusement arcades to see what it was in there that was so bad. And that thing in the old days of the bookies with those, do you remember those sort of plastic strips, coloured strips?
Sadly, I do, yeah.
so that when the door was open in the summer, because legally you weren't allowed to see what was inside there. Mm-hmm. So I started betting at school. I found very, very quickly that I'd inadvertently opened the door into an incredible world of obviously amazing animals, brave men and women, extremely skilled trainers, and on the race course, the sort of anthropological side of watching human behaviour, which you would know more about than I would. In the betting ring, you meet every type of human life, don't you? You meet people who dress like lords who haven't got a pot to piss in. You meet people like tramps who are rich as Croesus, and everybody in between. And so when I was at university, I didn't like law. It was you know, I wasn't prepared for it. It was, you'd have sort of 50 cases a week or something of about 50 pages, 2,500 pages. I wouldn't read that in 6 months, never mind a week. You know, I read like The Cat Sat on the Mat very slowly, obviously like more advanced books than that, but so, you know, quite quickly I thought, well, I'm the youngest of 4 brothers, and the next one up from me was at the time at the Royal Academy of Music, and had got a scholarship there, and he'd just started playing professionally, loved what he did, and I thought, well, rather than try and pursue law, which you don't like, try and get a job in horse racing journalism. Wrote to Timeform. The late Reg Griffin interviewed me, gave us a job, which I started in September 1990, the 3rd of September. Was there about 2.5 years. Wasn't one of the stars, as I'm sure people would probably appreciate. Didn't feel that it was a particularly good place to work. I didn't really feel it was a meritocracy. I didn't feel that, you know, it's no great secret that Timeform Jim and I aren't mates. You know, I thought that I didn't enjoy working for Jim. I didn't really enjoy working for Reg. I thought that it was a place where, you know, one time you'd work a 13-day fortnight because you had to do extra work on your days off, and then one day I was like late back from the barbers, and I got a bollocking because I'd sat in the queue in Halifax and wasn't back on time, and I got a bollocking, and I thought sod this, you know, I'm going to just try and go freelance, which I did very unsuccessfully. Got my card. It was 1993, got my card confiscated, watched the Ashes series, which was a great series, albeit that Australia were dominant. It was the year, I think it was the year of the ball of the century of Shane Warnes and his emergence. And just as my bank card got confiscated in the Tesco's in Bedford when I was buying some groceries for my mother, I got a job with the PA in Leeds and moved back up from London to Leeds, worked there for 6 years, fell out with them. Over, you know, I'd arranged to take a lease in London because I was driving from Leeds to Sandown and Ascot. I was their chief reporter in May 1988, and then November 99, had a row, went freelance for about a year, did lots of shifts at the Racing Post, moved back to London, got a staff job at the Racing Post in December 2000, and then the Mirror job came up in 2002 May when Charlie Forkus retired. Incredibly, people weren't like fighting over themselves to get that job, which nowadays you would think, Christ, you know, there's a correspondence job at a national newspaper. The competition would be extremely fierce, even though we're in an industry of shrinkage, and I got it, so you know that was great. It's been, you know, a brilliant 17.5 years, and I hope it can go on for a bit more.